Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Politics Matters podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Jakubowski, and today we'll be doing an update on the state of the 2022 midterms. So we won't be focusing exclusively on a Senate race, a governor's race, or the House map. We'll just be talking about the most recent polls we've gotten, where we are in the competitive races, and just some hot takes I'll be dishing out here. This is an episode that I haven't really scripted too much, so I'm probably gonna be all over the place today, but that's okay. And if you like more, I guess not unorganized, because I don't want to say that, but if you like more on the fly type stuff, this is your podcast. So let's just pop right into it here. Again, if you're on Spotify, go share it, go give it a thumbs up, review it if you can. If you're on YouTube, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and you can always tag me on Twitter. You can always tell me your thoughts down below. And I'm willing to have, by the way, I'm willing to have a conversation if you're being proactive about it, obviously. So yeah, let's talk about the polls we've gotten this week, because there have been some pretty crazy polls. So the first poll we'll start out by talking about is from Trafalgar, and it is a poll out of Nevada, and they did both the Senate race and the governor's race, and they showed decently good results for the Republicans. Not amazing, but pretty good. So first of all, in the Senate race, they had Catherine Cortez Masto down to Adam Laxalt by about 2.4%, which again is very funny because that's the exact margin the 2020 and 2016 presidential races were decided by. And it's also the margin that Cortez Masto beat Joe Heck by in 2016. So another 2.4% race in Arizona or in Nevada would be very, very funny. But anyways, they have Laxalt beating Cortez Masto by 2.4%. And they have Joe Lombardo beating Steve Sisolak by about 3%. So yeah, that's like on the surface, that's not great for Democrats, and like this is not a good poll for the Democrats. Like there is no way you can spin this and say this poll makes me more confident than Cortez Masto and Sisolak are going to win Nevada. There's no way you can say that. What you can say is that okay, it's an interesting poll. I'm going to look into it, but it's also Trafalgar, which is the same poll that had Trump winning Nevada by a point in 2020. They had in 2018 they had Adam Laxalt winning by 2.1%, Sisolak won by 4.1%. And then in the Senate race, they had Dean Heller winning by more than 3%, and he lost by 5%. So again, they have a very, very sketchy record of polling Arizona in the past, and they missed it 3 ways consecutively in the exact same direction. Governor Laxalt is not a thing, Senator Heller is not a thing anymore, and Donald Trump did not win Nevada in the 2020 presidential election. So not great for Trafalgar. I don't love them in general. I'm actually blocked by them on Twitter, I think, because it was a few months ago. They did a poll, and I think I said the crosstabs didn't make any sense, and they blocked me. And I don't even know why they blocked me, because I don't think I was being rude. I just said I don't know why they had this crosstab. Anyways, I don't love Trafalgar in Nevada. I don't love Trafalgar in general, as I'm saying, but there's like you can like argue, okay, they were good. Like in 2020, they were very good in Wisconsin. They were very good with was it Pennsylvania? They were good in either Pennsylvania or Michigan, one of the two. I think that they had Trump winning both of them, but they were pretty close. And in a July poll, they did actually have Biden ahead in Pennsylvania. But here's the thing with Trafalgar: they always bet on the Republicans, and when the Republicans do well, Trafalgar is like, "Wow, look at us, we called it." And then when Republicans don't do well, like in 2018, they end up looking like fools. They end up looking like they're biased, and that's why they're not a pollster that I take super seriously. I'll read their polls. I think that they're worth looking at, which again, uh, no hate to them. I just genuinely don't love their track record, and I won't trust them till I have a reason to trust them. And outside of a few lucky guesses, they're usually not good. So they only have they have Laxalt up by about the exact same margin they had him up by in 2018 when he lost. So that poll does not change my mind. I still think Cortez Masto is favored to win Nevada. I still think Adam Laxalt is headed for a narrow defeat. And that poll does not make me any more confident in that, or any less confident. Steve Sisolak as well. I think that race is like I have no read on that race right now. I could see Lombardo win. Like if you tell me Lombardo wins, I'd believe it. If you tell me Sisolak wins, I'd believe it. But yeah, just one of those races where I do think that the Republican Party is in a very, very good spot for a pickup, but they're not immediately favored. So yeah, I buy that Sisolak could be down 2 right now. I also would believe that he's up by 2 by now, right now, if you told me that. And again, the polls we have in Nevada governor, like we haven't talked about it too much, but go on 538, the polling average in the Nevada governor's race currently has Steve Sisolak beating Joe Lombardo by about 1.5%. and that's with the Trafalgar poll in. And I think prior to the Trafalgar poll, he was up by about 2. He's now down to 1.5. So changes a little bit for the Republicans, but not, doesn't really mean too much. Anyways, let's talk about the next poll we got, which was a poll out of the state of Florida. And again, I'll just say it up front. I don't think Val Demings has a chance of beating Marco Rubio. I would be genuinely stunned if she beat him. And I don't know where the University of North Florida got this poll from. They had her at 48%. They had Rubio at 44%. And I read the poll. I don't know what else you can say other than this is just a really, really weird poll. It's not a Democratic internal. It's not like I don't think Demings would be paying them to have her up by 4. But again, this is like an AB rated pollster by 538. So they're apparently pretty good at what they do. They have Demings up by 4. It's just one of those things where it doesn't make any sense and you're going to dismiss it, but you don't really have a good explanation why. Like if Blueprint had Demings up by 4, I'd be like, okay, it's Blueprint. They have Kelly up by 20. They're just not good at polling. Then I would be able to say that. But the thing with this poll is that you can't do that because they actually have a decent track record. So not much I can say there. And then, the other polls you've seen since then in the Senate race, Center Street PAC had Rubio up by 7, and they did another poll and they had Rubio up by 11. So the polling average in Florida, I don't know if they have it on 538, but the most recent polls have been Rubio plus 10, Rubio plus 8, Rubio plus 9, the 2 even polls, and then the Demings plus 4 poll, and then the Rubio plus 7, Rubio plus 11 poll. I still think Rubio's going to win by, double digits. This is a state that Trump won by 3, despite the fact he was down a couple points in the polls on election day. The polls are probably going to be wrong again. They're probably going to miss the same way again. Polling Florida is very hard, and the Democrats always seem to get a little too optimistic about it and then have their hopes, crushed on election day. Yeah, Rubio's going to win, and I really don't see a path for him to even come close to losing. So that poll, I don't know what it is, but I'm not going to talk about it because it just goes against every shred of logic in elections, and it would be completely shocking if you were to lose. Now, let's talk about Pennsylvania, which is the most interesting poll that happened this week. Trafalgar did a Senate and governor poll in Pennsylvania, and it was not pretty for the Republicans because, again, Trafalgar is a Republican-leaning poll. They are listed as a partisan poll on, I think, 538. And they show John Fetterman up by 4.9% over Dr. Oz. He's at 48.4%, very close to that 50% mark to, really start to inspire confidence. That is really bad for Dr. Oz. Let's just think about this. Trafalgar is the poll that in 2020, their final poll had Trump winning Pennsylvania, I just checked, by 1.9%. They have the Republicans down by 5 in the Senate race. This is the poll that had the Republicans winning New Hampshire in 2020. They had them winning Nevada. They had them winning Michigan and Pennsylvania. They had them winning Georgia. This is a poll that has consistently overestimated Republicans, that is tied to the Republican Party, and that's only really respected within Republican circles. They came out yesterday and said that Dr. Oz is down by 5%. Not even within the margin of error. Not even tied. They said Dr. Oz is down by 5%. There is no reason they should have said that. If it was a fundraising pitch, they should have had him tied. If it was to inspire confidence, they should have had him up for the first time. He is down 5%, and in a race that he was supposed to be easily favored in a few months ago, he is polling, quite literally, in this poll at 43.5%. He's not even at 45%. And this is a seat held by the Republicans. Pat Toomey won the seat by 3% in 2016. This is not a seat where the Republicans were supposed to be the underdog. He is trailing John Fetterman by 5%, and it just cannot get any worse for Dr. Oz. I do not know how you could run a campaign this badly. Between the Crudettes video, which was obviously Crudite video, and that awful ad that he put out of pulling screws out of John Fetterman's head. I just don't you could tell me that John Fetterman is paying the people running Dr. Oz's campaign, and I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense because this is just horrific. Dr. Oz's campaign is so bad that he has taken a race he was favored in, but by me. By the way, I did a podcast in May, or no, I think it was in June even. It was in June where I said Fetterman's probably going to lose Dr. Oz, probably be 3-4%. In the span of 2 months, I've gone from Fetterman's going to lose by 4%. He's now going by 4%. This is how bad Dr. Oz's campaign is. He's down by 11% in the polls. He's airing ads that make no sense, that are just cringy. He gets racial in every tweet he posts. He's just being slammed for how non-relatable he is, and he just can't catch a break. And look, this isn't me. Like, obviously, if I lived in Pennsylvania, I wouldn't vote for Dr. Oz. I think everyone who knows my politics knows that I'd be voting for Fetterman. But look, I was not someone who was big on Fetterman in the start. I was, like, I'll admit it. In January 2022, I wrote, so this was only 7 months ago, I wrote an article saying I'd vote for Connor Lamb because I think he's the better pick. Obviously, I was wrong, and like a month after that, I was like, Lamb is running a bad campaign. Fetterman's the way to go, and he's going to win anyways, so it doesn't matter. So I was wrong with John Fetterman. I was never someone who really believed in Fetterman, and if he does win in November, which right now looks more likely than not, I will talk about it on the podcast. I'll talk about why I was wrong. I'll apologize to John Fetterman, hold myself accountable, because I got on the Fetterman train too late, is what it seems. But yet here we are. Fetterman's favored, and he's down, and he's up by 5% in the most Republican of polls. Dr. Oz isn't favored right now, and if you're saying he's favored, you are denying reality. Like, I don't mean to, like, be like one of those people who gets angry at people for disagreeing with me on predictions, right? Like, I will get along with, it's like, I'm not gonna be mad if you think Oz is favored, but like, he's down 11% in the polls. You don't win an election, you're down 11% on the polls. He's getting out fundraised. He's getting out momentum by a guy who was in the hospital with a stroke for 2 months. And he is just getting pummeled every day. He's down in his own internals. He's down in these public polls by double digits. He's not winning the elections today. Who knows what's going to happen between now and November? I know people are going to say, oh, well, it's, polls don't matter till Labor Day. Labor Day is going to be here in 2 weeks, and he's still going to be down by double digits. Then are the polls going to start mattering? Oh, the polls aren't going to matter till October 1st. October 1st, if he's down by 10%, oh, the polls don't matter till the week before the election. We keep doing this. The polls don't matter till June. The polls don't matter till Labor Day. We're just going to keep going. And I think Dr. Oz is still going to be down, because I've been told that the base is going to come home and coalesce around him for 4 months now. They have not come home to Dr. Oz. What is it going to take for them to come home to Dr. Oz? I know Trump's going to Pennsylvania, I think, on September 3rd. But I do not know if it's going to be enough to save this guy, because he needs every Trump voter who's going to vote in this election to come out and vote for him. And he needs, like, really high rural turnout. He needs better numbers with independents, and he needs better numbers with suburban voters who are now, oh, by the way, pretty mad at the Republican Party because of this Dobbs decision. He has to stay threading a very thin needle to win this election, and right now he's failing in all three aspects of it. I do not see Dr. Oz winning if the election were to be held today, and I don't think he's going to win in November, but again, we don't know what's going to happen between now and then. And for the governor's race, and I'll talk a little bit less about this because this race to me I'm more certain about it, and I think everyone is more certain about it. Josh Shapiro up by 3.9% in this poll. Or no, yeah, 3.9%. So he actually is running about a point behind Dr. Oz. But again, the thing here is that Shapiro is actually at 48.6%. Fetterman's at 48.4%. The difference is that Mastriano's 1.2% ahead of Oz. And that's mostly because Mastriano is like in the mid 80s with the Republicans, and Oz is like in the low 70s. So that's why. But either way, Mastriano has like coalesced the GOP base, and he's at 45%, which is kind of his floor. I don't think he's going to go up from there. Like, I don't think he'll lose by 10 on election day, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see like a 52-46 or 53-46 result in favor of Shapiro on election day. And I wouldn't have said that a few months ago. Like, I was very much on the narrow Shapiro train, but Mastriano is literally, like, his campaign is such a clown show that he's retweeting fake polls on Twitter. Like, I think he like retweeted like a fake poll on Twitter that had him winning or something. It was, I don't know how he thought that retweeting like a poll that was supposed to be a joke or something on Twitter, fully seriously, because he can't, like, apparently he can't even fund his own. And like, I think someone else on Twitter was like, when you're so broke that you retweet obviously joke pollsters on Twitter to try to make your campaign look better or something like that. He has no money. He's getting just blitzed on the airwaves 24/7. Shapiro has something like 20 million more cash on $20 million more cash on hand than Doug Mastriano. Like, you don't win a race where you're out moneyed like 37-1. That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. In a competitive race, you need to have fairly even fundraising, maybe slightly below, but fairly even, really, to compete. The RG are not going to help him out. He has very lackluster fundraising, and the Democrats are going to keep giving Shapiro the big bucks because this is like probably their most important governor's race. This or Michigan, maybe Arizona, but Pennsylvania, they have 3 competitive House seats, a semi-competitive state legislature, competitive Senate race, competitive governor's race. I think Pennsylvania is the most important state for Democrats this year. It's either that or Michigan, but either way, Whitmer's looking good in Michigan. Josh Shapiro seems to be on track to beat Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania. And Trafalgar has Mastriano down. He's in like the high 80s or the mid to high 80s with the Republicans. Unless he starts getting a lot more popular with independents a lot quicker, he's not going to win this race. It's very hard for him to do that because he's letting Shapiro define him on the airwaves. With TV and every time we turn on TV in Philadelphia, it's Doug Mastriano, too radical for Pennsylvania, too extreme for Pennsylvania. It's just that kind of thing, and I don't know if Mastriano can really pull it out from here. Like the argument for Mastriano back in May or June was that, okay, look, he's not getting RGA funding right now, but if he can make it close, if he can, make these internal polls with him and Shapiro very close, maybe they'll give some money to him and say, okay, this race is competitive. He hasn't made it close yet. It doesn't look like he'll be making it close, and I don't think he's going to be getting any funding anytime soon. So, Pennsylvania governor, lean Democratic, more close to likely than toss-up, and I'm fairly confident at this point that Josh Shapiro is going to win. Thank God. Okay, so let's talk about some few races that I've laid out here on my handy sheet of paper. So first of all, we talked about Nevada. I think Cortez Masto is narrowly favored. I think Fetterman's narrowly favored Pennsylvania. Next Senate race we'll be doing is the state of Ohio, because I think Ohio's not too competitive, but it needs to be addressed. Tim Ryan's not winning. I don't like to say that because, again, I despise J.D. Vance. I would love to see Tim Ryan pull it off. It would be great. If I lived in Ohio, I'd absolutely vote for Tim Ryan. But here's the thing. Ohio is a state that voted for 12% to the right of the country in 2020. It is a state where the Democratic Party in a blue wave lost a toss-up governor's race to Mike DeWine when they were running a supposedly strong candidate. And Ohio is a state where the Democratic Party has not won the House popular vote, I believe, in over 10 years. This state is not competitive. Tim Ryan is running a good campaign, and he has done his job for the Democrats in that he's deflecting. He's basically just the bait, right? He's trying to distract Republicans and say, "Oh, I'm in Ohio, guys," and they have poured $28 million into J.D. Vance's campaign to try to just wipe Tim Ryan, play whack-a-mole with Tim Ryan in Ohio, and he's not going to win. But the fact that he's winning in GOP internals, apparently, according to the Washington Post or whoever, I think it was Politico, whoever wrote that article, he's winning in GOP internals. The polls have him ahead by 2% on the aggregate in 538. The Republicans just want to get this race, again, they're playing whack-a-mole. They want to get this race off the board and be done with Ohio. They should not be in Ohio this late in the game. This race should have been over in June. We should have just all agreed this race was safe Republican in June, because this is a red wave midterm, guys. Shouldn't Ohio, a state that was 12% more Republican than the nation in 2020, it's trending right, in a seat that's held by the Republican Party, be safe Republican in a red wave midterm? Shouldn't the Republican Party not be pouring money into Ohio in a safe Republican midterm in a safe Republican state? No, because we're not in as much of a red wave as we were before. The Republican Party can still very much win the generic ballot, but we are not in an R+5 environment. We're not an R+6 environment. In fact, I watched a Red Eagle video. He's obviously, I don't really agree with his predictions, and I do believe that he's putting on kind of an act to just get more clicks and whatnot. And it's smart. He's good at what he does. He's entertaining, to say the least. He had the Republicans winning the generic ballot by 9% in a prediction from June. It's now down to 5%. And when Red Eagle moves it down to R+5, the guy who had John James winning his Senate race in 2020, the guy who thought that Matt Bevin was easily going to win the 2019 Kentucky governor's race, John Bell Edwards, he had I think he had Alex Skarlatos winning the 2020 election or Oregon's, was it the 4th district or the 5th district? He had he said that Tucker Carlson would win Oregon in a 2024 election. This is someone who is extremely, extremely Republican leaning. And he moved it down 4% towards the Democrats in 2 months. That should tell you where we are right now. The fact that Red Eagle thinks the Democrats have gained 4% in 2 months tells you all you need to know about our generic ballot and our national partisanship, because it's not looking good for the Republicans. They can pull out a generic ballot lead. I wouldn't be stunned if they win it by 1 or 2% on election day. But I also wouldn't be stunned if the Democrats win it by 1 or 2 either. and I would not have said that ever, like even privately, in 2 months ago. But it's where we are right now, and it's just remarkable how much the Democrats have recovered. And the fact that the Republicans are pouring $28 million into Ohio, and the fact that Tim Ryan is apparently leading in Republican internal polls, and the fact that J.D. Vance is getting out fundraised, having it bailed out by Mitch McConnell, not good for the Republicans, because that $28 million that should not be going to a safe state in a safe year for the Republicans should be going to competitive races like Nevada or Arizona or Georgia, or maybe to bail out Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania. But yeah, not looking too good for the Republicans that they have to be in Ohio instead of in an actually competitive race. So yeah, I think that the Republicans going to Ohio instead of these other races says a lot about the environment, not really Tim Ryan. Like, look, I love Tim Ryan. I respect him. He is one of my favorite representatives, and I wish him the best in his political career. And I hope that he runs for something again. I don't know what it will be because Ohio's going to be a red state, but I do hope that Tim Ryan continues because he is a great dude and he is a fantastic politician. He is one of the stars of the Democratic Party, and I say that genuinely seriously. Here's the thing. He's not going to win. He's going to lose by 4% at best. He could easily lose by like 9 or 10 too. I'm losing by 7 right now, but could be more, could be less. And he is just baiting the Republicans into spending money in Ohio instead of these other races. He's taking the bullet and he's shielding Cortez Masto, Kelly, Warnock, and Fetterman. And he's being a team player right now for the Democrats, and they have to respect that. And I respect it, obviously. So Ohio's not flipping. I'll say that, even though we would like it to, and even though we all love Tim Ryan. So let's talk about our governor's races here. Talked about Nevada, talked about Pennsylvania. There's one more, and it's one that I've been like really not into talking about because it's just such a difficult state to talk about because it's so hard to analyze. Arizona governor. I originally was like very, very much on the train of Arizona is a ancestrally Republican state. Katie Hobbs is a good candidate, but she's not good enough to like win a local office in Arizona, a state that's just so, Democratic or so Republican at the bottom of the ballot. But here's the thing. That would have been a good argument if the Republicans were running Karen Taylor Robeson, because she genuinely would have won that race by probably 4 or 5%. They're running Kari Lake, the former Democrat who I think was like accused of partying with the drag queen, was anti-Trump as late as 2017, and is like running a god-awful campaign. She literally told Katie Hobbs that she would debate her and she would let Katie Hobbs pick the moderator, write the questions, and just do anything she wanted. Like, I don't know why she would do that. I don't know why she's so desperate to debate Katie Hobbs. Like, she's probably down in her own internals. I mean, well, she's down her, like, she's down a point in the most recent Republican internal, so that's not good for her. But more importantly, I was wrong when I said in my previous the Republicans didn't win Arizona state of mind was that the Democrats can win Senate races, they can win presidential races, but they cannot win local races, right? Governor races. And the thing is, Katie Hobbs literally won the Secretary of State race in 2018 by a point. It was very close, but she beat out the Republicans, right? So she is someone who I do view as a good candidate. I know a lot of people don't like her because of her personality or whatnot, because she's, apparently like cringe. Like, I don't know where they get that from, because I think she's a fine candidate. She's a statewide official. She's won elections before, and, people who say, oh, she only won by 1 in a D plus 8.6 year. Yeah, she was the only Democrat to win, I think the only Democrat to win a local office in Arizona statewide. So clearly she's doing something right. And also, she is the person who certified it. Obviously, she certified Arizona's election results, right? Biden won Arizona. And she's running against someone who literally, to this day, thinks that mules traffic ballots, thinks that we had a, quote, corrupt, stolen election. That's just toxic politics. Like, unless you're running in, like, Nebraska, Wyoming, or Arkansas, you're not going to be able to win elections if you're running on the, the election was stolen, right? Because it's blatantly false. Most voters are past the election, except, like the diehard Trump voters who are voting Republican anyways. It's toxic in the suburbs. And Arizona's a very moderate state. It's very suburban. And the reason that Biden did so well in Arizona in 2020, despite the fact he had Hispanic, problems, was because he was able to galvanize moderate Republicans in the suburbs to come out and vote for him, even though they voted Martha McSally, even though they voted for Republicans but in the House at the bottom of the ballot. So I don't think this is a safe race. I do think it's still in the toss-up column, but it's certainly tilting towards Katie Hobbs. And uh, again, the Republicans would have been favored with any other candidate. With Matt Salmon, Kimberly Yee, Karen Taylor Robeson, they would have won this race. But Carrie Lake is just a really bad candidate, and she's one of the worst candidates the Republicans are running this cycle. And they're running a lot of bad candidates, so that's saying a lot. So Arizona, tilt Democratic, but again, very, very close. So that's Arizona. Final race we talking about today. Sorry, no House races, but that'll be probably the next podcast. Let's talk about Michigan, the governor's race there. Gretchen Whitmer, Tudor Dixon. This race is just, I don't know if the circumstances could have been set up any better for the Michigan Democrats. Tudor Dixon said that, and I find this appalling and disgusting, by the way, just so you know. I'm sure you were able to infer that, but completely disgusting statement. Tudor Dixon said, and I quote, "The bond that those two people made and the fact that out of that tragedy there was healing through that baby, it's something we don't think about." That is her comment. That is what she was saying to victims of rape. So she literally thinks that there is a bond to be shared with babies who are born as a result of rape. No. She is advocating for forcing women to give birth to children that they did not plan for and were forcefully put in them. It's disgusting. It's reprehensible. I think that statements like that are just horrific, and Tudor Dixon is unqualified to hold this office in Michigan, obviously. But from an election standpoint, it's just completely toxic. Even the most diehard of pro-life voters think that that's at least off-putting at best. Some people, a lot of, the path for Republicans in Michigan was keep up the gains of the working class and do a little better in the suburbs, and we'll flip Michigan, right? Tudor Dixon is doing her absolute best to run behind Trump in the suburbs, and she's running against Gretchen Whitmer, who won by 11 points statewide last time, carried Macomb County, did very well with ancestral Democrats, has a 55% approval rating, and has a good Detroit turnout operation. Whitmer's going to win. I don't like to say for sure she's going to win, but Whitmer is very, 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 very likely going to win. I think she's more likely that she wins by 8 than she loses at all. I don't think she'll win by my current prediction. She wins by 5 or 6, but yeah, Whitmer is a popular incumbent. She is well liked by the majority of voters in her state. Democrats really like her. A lot of independents like her. She's polling better than Tudor Dixon. She's up in every single poll we've seen. And Tudor Dixon, Gretchen Whitmer has so much more money than Tudor Dixon, and she's in a Democratic-leaning state. I think she'll be fine. I'd be really surprised if Tudor Dixon does manage to pull this off. And she's just turning out to be a really bad candidate. I've heard takes that Tudor Dixon is worse than Doug Mastriano, and honestly, I could see it. Her comments about abortion, her comments about the fact that she wants no exceptions for in any case of abortion, no matter what, not even to protect the mother's life. It's just, I don't know how anyone is okay with saying this at a personal level, a moral level, but also it's just terrible politics. It's bad. It shows you're bad at winning elections. So Tudor Dixon I think she loses by 5, 6, 7% in Michigan. She'd be lucky to run even with Trump, because I think Whitmer's going to outrun Biden in almost every county, especially in the suburbs, but also with the working class, because Biden lost Macomb County by 7%, and I think Whitmer is in a good position to maybe flip back Macomb County. Just an example of the working class vote in Michigan. Again, Macomb County, very, very auto-y. So, yeah. So those are my predictions for those races I just want to talk about today. It's just kind of a freestyle podcast. But yeah, so in case you're wondering, I have the Democrats. I'll go through the swing races right here. Senate races, I think Democrats are going to hold on to Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania as we stand today. I think they're running better than consensus position North Carolina, even though Sherry Beasley is an underdog. I still think Ron John wins, although I will say Mandela Barnes is running a better campaign than I expected. J.D. Vance is going to win, and Marco Rubio is going to win. So that's a 51-49 Senate prediction. Democrats gaining 1 seat in the Senate. Governor's map, I think the Democrats are going to win Oregon, although it could be funky because of Betsy Johnson being the independent candidate there and potentially siphoning away votes from the Democrats, especially in Clackamas County and the suburbs of Portland. I believe that Sisolak's going to narrowly beat out Lombardo, but I have no confidence it's a pure coin flip. Again, I think Katie Hobbs is narrowly favored over Carrie Lake. I believe Mark Ronchetti is going to narrowly go down to Michelle Lujan Grisham, although again, that's a seat that I could see, or a race I could see fluctuating a lot. Laura Kelly's going to lose. I like Laura Kelly, believe me, but I think she loses. She's in a super red state, and she's not like, Phil Scott levels of popular to win in a state that's the opposite partisanship. So I think she loses by like 7 or 8%, although again, she's in a better spot than I would have expected. Beto O'Rourke's going to lose by 7 or 8 in Texas. I think it'll be single digits, by the way. I originally had him losing by like 12, but I think he loses by single digits. Ron DeSantis wins by 7, maybe 6. I don't know how good of a campaign Chris is going to run, but he's going to lose anyways. I think Kemp wins by 4, but Abrams is in a better spot than most people realize because, again, all she has to do is force it to a runoff, and then it immediately becomes a toss-up race. Walz is going to win by 3 or 4%. Again, not too much to say there, unless like there's a ton of vote splitting between him and the Weed Party candidate. I think he'll be fine. Obviously, Reynolds and DeWine are going to win by like 15 or 20. It won't be close. Pritzker's going to win by 15. I do think Tony Evers goes down though. It'll be one of the rare, I think, really bad performances for Democrats. He's in a super right trending state, not super popular. And yeah, I think that Michels will beat him. Obviously, I think Whitmer wins. I think Shapiro wins. Hochul's going to win. In Maryland, Dan Cox is going to get just pummeled by Westmore. In Massachusetts, Maura Healey is going to beat Jeff Deal. That's an easy Democratic pickup. And then obviously Phil Scott and Chris Nunu holding on in those 2 blue states, even though they're Republicans, but they're very good campaigners. Lamont's going to beat Stefanowski. And then in Maine, lastly, I think prior to Roe, it could have been a toss-up, but I do think LePage is going to go down to Janet Mills now because Maine's a super pro-choice, and they probably want a Democrat in there. So, yeah. That's it, really. I don't know the exact numbers for the governor's map, but again, Republicans flip Kansas and Wisconsin. Democrats, right now, I think that they flip Arizona and that they flip Maryland and Massachusetts. I think that's it. But yeah, so thanks so much for watching or listening to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed. Hope you had some. I hope I made some good points. If not, you still like the video. But anyways, so on a more serious note, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. You feel free to share it on Twitter or wherever you want to share your podcast or like your podcast or any way to support what I'm doing here. And again, you're always free to tag me on Twitter or whatnot. So yeah, thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you all next week. Bye.